Good afternoon everyone, my name's Stephanie Rowe-Catterall and I'm the Head of Facilities for Pennine NHS Foundation Trust, which is a mental health and learning disability NHS trust across Greater Manchester. I'm responsible for around 191 in-house staff delivering soft FM services across 5 different boroughs. These initiatives do go some way towards achieving the priorities set in the EFM Workforce Action Plan and also the NHS Long-Term Workforce Plan, but we're very much starting at a ground floor level, looking at the basics. I was asked today whether I could run through the initiatives that we have started to implement in order to improve our recruitment and retention. We've seen some really positive results, so some may be of interest to you that you can also implement. I'm also really lucky in my team that I've got really great people working with me that have really helped support and shape these initiatives. So as we go through, I'll be using the term we a lot, as it's very much been a kind of a shared collaborative approach with me and my team this. So the main workforce challenges that we were facing were both external, and that was due to having a number of long-standing external vacancies that we were struggling to fill, but also internal, where we had a very poor uptake of any internal progression, anyone taking roles, progressing through the structure, and initial feedback was predominantly around the salary, the difference in salaries of those roles. I also felt that there was an inadequate workforce structure as well within the services, which was contributing to those. So we initially focused on the Band 2 and the Band 3 posts, which were the supervisors. Initial feedback was that people didn't want to step up predominantly into the supervisor roles because of the pay difference between the top of a Band 2, because of a lot of our staff had worked there for many years, and the bottom of a Band 3, so that was a real sticking point. However, I did feel like it was something that hadn't really been explored any further, and it had kind of just been accepted within the trust as that was just something that kind of happened over time, so there was definitely room to explore with that. And then we also needed to look at our external recruitment, particularly for those entry-level roles, more so at Band 2. We had a number of long-standing vacancies on our track portal for domestic roles. Little interest. Again, it really felt like it was something that had just been accepted over time, that they were out on track and kind of that's the best we could do, and you know the country was facing major recruitment challenges, and that was the reason for it, rather than kind of exploring any other initiatives with regards to that. So a starting point when looking at our retention was to really understand the main reasons why people were leaving the organisation. So the main reasons were voluntary resignation, which was a really difficult one to unpick because we didn't have any more data to understand then what actually was behind that, so why had they resigned. People were also leaving to move to different NHS trusts, and also through retirement. So whilst our retention rate wasn't overly alarming, there was definitely room for improvement. But what I really wanted to focus on was why our staff were moving to other NHS trusts. And the main reason for that was that they were most likely going to a role at a similar banding, and that meant that they weren't leaving us for a higher salary. If they were leaving for a higher banded post, why was that? Is it that there was a gap in our structure which didn't allow that progression? Is it therefore that they had to leave and go to a different NHS trust rather than us retaining them? Was it simply that they didn't want to work with Pennine NHS Trust because of our culture? Did we have that wrong? Or was it that our staff didn't feel like they were getting the support in place to do their roles, and that was another reason why they might have left? So lots to unpick with that. We also did want to look more into the voluntary resignation and reasons why that might have been. But like I say, very difficult when you didn't have the data behind. But from a study in 2022, the main reasons why people left an NHS trust were pay and reward, health and well-being, flexible working, and also development. So yeah, there was a lot to unpick when we're looking specifically at retention. So I initially identified that we were very low on supervisor resource. So we had a team of 191 staff, and some of our supervisors were looking at close to 40 staff. So they just weren't getting the time that they needed from our supervisors, and the supervisors couldn't do their actual role. So I took it back to basics. So we needed to understand, what did the trust need from us in terms of a service? What did the staff need from us in order to deliver that service? How well were we delivering that service, and how did we know that? So really kind of looking the full circle. So we did find that we didn't think that the issue was service output. We were achieving our national cleaning standards. We had very little complaints through from services, and all our patients were fed. So yeah, it wasn't the output side that was an issue. But what we did find is that was because we've got a very committed and dedicated workforce who were working over and above expectations. It wasn't through effective management of the services. So we had significant levels of overtime. We had staff who weren't taking annual leave when they wanted to because they couldn't. We had Band 3 supervisors working in Band 2 positions and then going back to the supervisor post on top of that. And it was just staff kind of covering the work of 2 people and very much just getting by on a reactive basis. What that meant is we had a really burnt out workforce, and they felt undervalued, overworked, and it just showed that we had no resilience in the services in terms of the workforce. We also identified that we didn't have enough funding just to cover the basics. So something like the national cleaning standards, we didn't have enough budget even on the bottom line to cover those. But what staff were doing, we're going above and beyond, like I say, potentially even doing the work of 2 people sometimes. So that was one of the things that we'd identified. Culture was another one of the things that was really impacting this, and that was because we had a siloed approach to a lot of our services. So we had porters, domestics, caterers, and there was very much no lap over. So if we were struggling in one area, we didn't have a one-team approach where we'd be able to support each other. So that, again, that was contributing to the issues that we had in terms of service resilience. In terms of monitoring, we had very little monitoring, so we didn't know how well our services were actually being delivered, other than the feedback we were getting through and through kind of general observations, but really getting that assurance through, we needed to really drum down on that a little bit more. With regards to support, our staff, they weren't having regular one-to-ones, no team meetings, yearly conversations were overdue, and that was predominantly around the fact that we had limited resource within the supervisors and the managers. The managers also were struggling to get the support they needed from higher management up, as we had just one Band 7 manager covering all 5 localities, so it was a real stretch for them as well. So it just had a knock-on effect on all different layers within the structure. No clear leadership, no strategy, and it was just very much on a reactive basis. Managers and supervisors, I think, had just very much accepted it as that's the way it was, and kind of they were just fighting day by day just to keep the services running. So this gave us a number of opportunities to look at. So we looked at multi-skilling staff, so having staff that were trained in different areas of facilities, like I said, not just domestic services or portering services, to look at try and bolstering that resilience. Identifying specific dedicated relief resource, and that meant that we weren't relying on staff goodwill to cover annual leave, sickness, etc., and just gave us a bit more resilience. Identifying ways to improve our staff health and well-being, so look at different initiatives with regards to that, because then that would also then look to reduce our sickness rates. Mapping out what we actually want in terms of supervisor resource. So what does it look like, the model, in terms of having a certain number of staff per supervisor? Kind of what is that maximum that us as a trust would allow and I think is acceptable? We also did a full review of every role, and what that meant is we needed to ensure that what we wanted from each role was down on the job description, it went to agenda for change, and it was fairly banded. And then that way, the staff members were being compensated for the job that they were carrying out. So if they were doing a Band 4 role and Band 4 responsibilities, then they were being fairly rewarded for that, rather than over time them picking up lots of different roles and responsibilities as we can over time. It was, again, just making sure that they knew that we were kind of taking it seriously, and we did want to recognise what they were doing for us. Internal development was also another opportunity we could look at. So could we use our existing workforce to bolster our supervisor and manager levels and really develop within the existing structure as we were all struggling with external recruitment? And it was also an opportunity at this point as well to review our budget to ensure that we had enough just to cover the basics. And then once we had enough of that, what did it look like in terms of having the next layer, kind of silver standard, gold standard, what did that look like? But like I say, it was very much getting the basics right first. So we took a number of initiatives from this. So we looked at improving the culture first off, and that was by rebranding the team to be the facilities team. So we no longer had domestic assistants or porters or catering assistants. We just had one team of facilities assistants. We wanted to very much have that one team ethos. We wanted them to have a shared purpose, delivering services to benefit the service user, you know, positive patient outcomes, and it would also give us some more resilience. That didn't mean that our domestics who've been with us for potentially 30 years were now going to be asked to go and work with the porters and do a shift with those, but it was very much around giving them the opportunity to multi-skill in the different areas, because it might be that they wanted to branch out in the different areas. But what we have done is with all new starters now as a facilities assistant, that is a prerequisite that they do need to be trained in the different services, and they need to be prepared to work in any of those. So that's working really well, and it's also giving us that multi-skilled team at the minute. We also introduced a Band 4 facility supervisor, and this replaced our Band 3 domestic supervisors and our Band 3 portering supervisors, so those were disestablished. And the main reason for that is we wanted our team to really take ownership of the environment. So the environment as a whole, we kind of wanted to move away very much of, well, that's domestic, that's porters, you know, that's estates. We just wanted this one team where we take anything away from the services, and then we would kind of liaise and deal with everything behind the scenes. But we just wanted that one kind of face approach for our service users. Being Band 4 as well meant that they could see that we were appropriately recognising what we wanted for them, and they were being rewarded fairly for that. I put forward a business case for the shortfall in our budget, which I was successful for, which was really great, because we could clearly demonstrate that we just didn't have enough budget, particularly in our Band 2 and Band 3, to appropriately deliver the services. It was really easy to write the paper because you could just clearly see kind of the services and how they're being run at the minute. But I was also able to say this is what we actually we're expecting once we're able to put in the new proposals and kind of the improvements in service. I also created a North and a South division in terms of that Band 7 management level, and that meant that they had more time to spend with our facility support managers, who then would have had more time to support the facility supervisors and vice versa, and really trickles down to supporting those frontline staff and making sure they were getting the best what they needed from our managers and supervisors. We also took it as an opportunity to refresh our monitoring team. So they're the ones that go around auditing our sites. It was kind of, what do we want from that team? How could we rebrand it, look at it? How can it best support our managers? Our managers, obviously, their priority is service delivery on a day-to-day basis. This team is very much sitting outside of the operational teams. So it's looking at what information can they pull together to best support managers to continually improve. And then finally, one of the initiatives we did, which has been a really, really positive piece of work, is that we introduced a facilities quality and compliance manager within the structure. This person manages the monitoring team, again, sits outside of the operational team. I see them, number one, as kind of the police of the department to make sure they're doing what they should be doing and they're keeping us compliant. But they've got capacity to look at separate initiatives. So a lot of the recruitment initiatives, for example, George is supported with because he's had that time. You know, he can speak with the councils and liaising with them from the SEGs. He can liaise with the volunteers team. It's all things that we, you know, the managers would want to do, but it's just on a kind of day-by-day basis, things always take priority, don't they, in terms of making sure our services are running. So alongside the new structure, we created a career pathway. So it's really clear from Band 2 right up to director level. So there's an apprenticeship mapped against each of those roles. So through Band 2, it will be a Level 2 facilities apprenticeship, and going right the way up to, say, a Level 6 apprenticeship for one of our manager posts. This has been a really great tool in terms of ensuring that anyone looking for internal development has a clear support training plan alongside them confidence was very much something that was coming up as why people didn't want to step up potentially for the next step within the structure. So having an apprenticeship alongside this was just giving them a little bit more confidence. Feedback has been really positive from staff. We've actually had 4 people who previously hadn't expressed an interest in stepping up, step up from a facilities assistant to a facilities supervisor post, and this apprenticeship pathway was very much one of the reasons that they were really keen, and they've stepped into those posts. We had 10 facilities supervisor posts following the restructure, and we filled those internally with 8 applicants. So it's just absolutely fantastic that when we think where we were 12 months ago and was really struggling with our gaps, we've been able to bolster and use that existing workforce rather than having to go out externally. We also looked at staff development. So it was very much this taking it back to basics. So for every role, we mapped out what we wanted from that role. So it was mandatory training, essential to role training, and also CPD opportunities for each role. So it didn't mean that someone needed to want to progress within the structure in order to have their own staff development. It was about developing them in their roles, but also identifying if they did want to progress. We've got some people that have worked with us for nearly 30 years who absolutely love their job delivering cleaning services, but they still have the same opportunities to develop within their roles and kind of do the best that they can within that role, just the same as anyone else. We've had really good feedback with regards to the record card, both from managers, because it gives them a really good structure and a platform to work with, both for new starters and existing staff. Because feedback we got was predominantly new starters were coming to the organisation, typically our managers and supervisors, and they'd kind of just be expected to get on with the job and find their way around, and then you end up with gaps, kind of quite poor morale. They've not come in with the best of inductions. So this is just a really great way of kind of always pulling the conversation back, and it can be recorded in one-to-ones with managers to kind of tick through, and it can also, like I say, pick up any CPD aspirations as well. So this has been another really positive tool that we've had. Health and wellbeing is another priority that my team have with our staff. Obviously really important, just for staff morale, but also for decreasing staff sickness. The increase in supervisory resources supported this because we are now at 100% from my yearly conversations, so that's like your annual IPDR, and that's an absolutely fantastic achievement that when we think we've got around 191 staff and they're not office-based, so we're going out having face-to-face meetings with them on an annual basis. Yeah, it's been a real achievement that, and it's been something that has been commended that within the trust by the CEO himself. But a real key part of that my yearly conversation is around staff wellbeing and making sure our staff are okay. We've also got regular one-to-ones documented now in place, and again, health and wellbeing plays a very strong role in those conversations. Staff know that we've got the Freedom to Speak Up Guardian, that's heavily promoted within the trust, but I also asked my team to all carry out the Freedom to Listen Up training. It's not mandatory, but I just think it's really important that our staff are equipped with the tools to be able to appropriately deal with our staff if they are coming forward with anything and really support them. Proactive absence management, I don't think, definitely can't be underestimated in the NHS. You can have high levels of sickness. But if we are proactive and managers are dealing with it, it's about supporting our staff, but it can also aid recovery back into the workplace, and it's just showing really effective management. We also use the results of the NHS National Annual Survey. So before I started, we had a very low uptake of this each year, and that was because of an historic blame culture, and people were a bit worried about being found out about the results they were given for some reason. We've done a lot of work on that, and we've managed to turn it round, and we had nearly double the uptake on the last survey. So yeah, it's something that we're definitely working on with that. The results were also really positive. We achieved over the national average in every domain within estates and facilities. And again, that was something that was commended by the CEO in the trust. So we've really been putting a lot of time and effort into improving our culture and making kind of people want to stay and work within Pennine. And we've also introduced an annual temperature check survey. So that is in between the national survey, and it will ask key questions like, are there any positive factors in the workplace supporting your well-being? Can you think of anything else? Any other suggestions? Do you enjoy your role? If not, why? Is there anything we can do? And like I say, it's that temperature check. It's at that point in time, how are our staff feeling? Is there anything that our managers can pick out to kind of address before it becomes anything bigger? And again, that's been something that's been received positively. Lots of engagement and retention, and recognitions for all this. Really, really positive when we're trying to retain our staff. Everyone has obviously heard of the National Estates and Facilities Day, but that's a really big part of that annually. Our senior managers go out and visit every single one of our frontline staff that day across all our different sites to say face to face, thank you very much for a job well done. It's very much appreciated that. We also deliver a personalised message from the CEO on that day as well. And we've also had the exec director of finance, who is our exec lead as well, with a personal message to our team to say thank you. And then we also get tray bakes and cupcakes from our own kitchen at Rochdale. So yeah, it all goes down very well. It's just a bit of a thank you, and it's just acknowledging them. We're also really lucky that our suppliers for the last 2 years have donated some prizes, and we've been able to do a raffle predominantly just for our facilities staff. And we've had a domestic who's won an iPad and bits like that. So again, it's just something to say thank you. And it's also our suppliers who want to say thank you. Back to the floor days is something that we incorporate with the National Estates and Facilities Day. So we've done that for the past 2 years as well. So we've had our director pot washing in Rochdale. We've had senior managers cleaning on the wards, serving in our canteen area. Again, it's something that's really well received, and it's just another thing to say thank you very much to our staff, and to say we absolutely recognise and acknowledge the hard work that you're doing. We're really lucky we've got a really engaging CEO. So our CEO regularly comes out on the kind of the front line and meets our teams and says thank you very much as well. Senior management as well. So our director of capital, he's very visible as well and regularly goes around on the wards. So it's just at all different levels in the organisation, our team are being told thanks very much for the role that you're doing, and you're doing an amazing job, and we completely recognise that. Our annual Trust Staff Awards, we've had some absolutely fab results with this. So in 2022, our domestic team in the South, we actually won the Team of the Year, which was absolutely amazing. There was a standing ovation when they went to collect their awards from everyone, and it just kind of showed how we're very much thought of, just as important as clinical services, which is just absolutely fantastic. 2023, someone in my team, one of our facilities managers, he was one of the finalists for the Rising Star Award. So yeah, very much about recognising our staff at a trust-wide level as well. So I'm not sure if you can tell, but I absolutely love my team. I'm super proud of them. And we like to let everyone know as well in the trust. So they're just a few of our comms stories that go out trust-wide. But it's all about making sure that they know that at all different levels of the trust, we know what an amazing job they're doing and how much we do appreciate the hard work. We've got a really engaging comms team, so we very much are lucky in terms of that. But they want us to shout out, they want us to share best practice, and our clinical teams often will look to us for kind of that lead in best practice, particularly around workforce, because we sometimes have some challenging characters within our workforce, and we do have to have really strong and effective managers in order to manage those. So yeah, again, that's another thing that a real compliment, the fact that clinical are looking to us as well. So in 22, our retention rate was 84.9%. And then in 12 months, we'd been able to increase it to just over 90%, so 90.7%. Which, absolutely fantastic when we look at that on paper. But the reasons as well for people leaving the organisation were very positive in terms of the change as well. So our two main reasons for leaving now were retirement and flexi-retirement. And we'd managed to reduce the amount of leavers leaving the organisation to move to a different NHS trust by around 17%, which was kind of a massive percentage when you think it's only been 12 months. But it's been all these different initiatives that we've put in place. So yeah, we've had some really positive feedback in terms of retaining our staff. And then external recruitment is something that we've looked at. I'd probably say the most positive we've had that I actually would recommend very much because it's worked really well is we introduced a development period to a role. So I had a Band 7 post for the quality and compliance manager, couldn't recruit for it. It went out about 4 times on track. We were getting interest, but it wasn't the right interest. It just didn't feel right. The people that were coming through, I didn't feel like they had the right attributes. So I worked with HR and we added a bit of a clause, and it was a development post for 12 months alongside a training competency framework which I've developed. And at the end of 12 months, they must have completed that, and then they'd move straight onto the Band 7 job description in its entirety. What that meant is that people could apply for the role who couldn't at that Band 7 post, but who really wanted to come into the organisation, come into that role, progress within a career within our organisation as well, and they were super, super keen. And we got someone who joined us from another NHS trust, and exactly that. He was really keen. He's been absolutely amazing in the trust. He wants to develop. He has enrolled in a level 6 apprenticeship, even though he's already got a degree. So he wants to purely develop within the trust. He wants to make a difference. He's already talking about how he can progress his career. So we've got that really clear succession plan now. And if we hadn't put that development period in, we would have missed someone like George. And he actually completed the training framework before 12 months. So I think we was about 8 or 9 months in, we'd signed everything off, and he moved straight onto the Band 7 job description. So yeah, like I said, that's something I would say really did work well in getting kind of the right attributes that we want for managers through the door in order to have that succession planning. I've also been working with the Strategic Estates Group, one of them so that's our strategic group in Rochdale. And they are super keen to work with us in terms of supporting with their job seekers. And they've actually offered to now look at developing a training course from the council in order to give us basic skills within cleaning, within COSH, in order to get them through the door and to be able to interview. Sorry, I'm getting a flashing light at the back. So that's been another thing that's been really positive in terms of the council working with us and getting more people through the door, and particularly getting people back into work. Recruitment first, we've really been pushing, and we've had some really positive outcomes from that. We have introduced multi-skilled bank posts for our facility supervisors, again giving us much needed resilience within the team. We are working with local universities and colleges. We've reached out particularly for our bank posts because we know that they'll be available during peak seasons, evenings, weekends, so just to support during those times. Again, that's been quite positive and been well received from those. We've gone old school and gone back to adverts in local shops because why not? We've moved forward with technology, but it doesn't mean that everyone else has. It doesn't mean that we're capturing everyone. We're actually getting really positive feedback back from that as well. And we've also been working with Recruitment to go back to accepting our old school CVs and paper copies. And again, we're getting results from that. So I think, yeah, whilst a lot of things have advanced, we almost just took a step back to the basics with external recruitment. And then just to run through super quick, our next steps for the next 12 months, we're going to be looking at apprentices. So we don't have any in the organisation, and we've got a real opportunity to enrol some, and they would be multi-skilled as well within the different teams, and then hopefully then they would come on board into a substantial post. Volunteers into paid employment, we have already started conversations with the volunteers team. Again, they're really keen, and we've already got a couple of people lined up. The idea would be to get them into the services, get them fully trained, and then as vacancies become available, they're able to apply for those. Internships, we have got an intern starting at the end of the month, and that is from somewhere called Choices College, who have students with learning disabilities who would like to come and spend a term with us. So they've expressed an interest in our catering services, so they'll come and spend a term with us in that. And again, it might be that a opportunity becomes available in the future for those, so we're trying to give something back as well. And then something regarding rotational bank posts with our estates and facility services, so looking at things like handyman duties, can we mix that with facilities posts and have that kind of rounded post, and just continue to promote apprenticeships and introduce an equality advocate lead within our recruitment process, because we acknowledge that we aren't the most diverse workforce, but we've got a bit more time now to look at things like that. I think I've run over very fast because I was having a good little squiggle at the back, so apologies. Yeah, thank you very much for your time.